Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Systane Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Systane Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast. Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk long-term shelter. Now, here's what I'm thinking. So, this isn't really like bug-out location that you've been preparing and building your camp, or, you decide you want to live off-grid. Now, obviously, I'm going to have a lot of useful information if you're doing these things. Or even setting up a bug-out location. But I'm thinking more kind of when you're limited to kind of what you can carry out there, and you're leaving in a hurry, and maybe you're starting from scratch because bad guys came and burned down your house.
Right.
So,
or your wife has just been nagging you, and you finally shoot her, and the cops are coming to get you.
And the cops are coming to get you.
So or your husband. You
don't have a lot of time to prepare for something like that,
right?
To be honest. So, basically, the way I envisioned it was, well, maybe the, I don't know. Like, all right, so the shit hits the fan. You decide you're going to hunker down in your house and whatever and tough it out. And you live in the suburbs, and you're like, I can handle it. Well, all of a sudden, there's like a rival street gang that's, going from house to house and whatever. And you realize, hey, they have AK-47s, and you're just you, your wife, and your kids, and it's not really going to work. And all of a sudden, based on all your planning and prepping and whatever, oh shit, you got to get out of there. Or maybe you're out and you come home and shit hits the fan, and you come home and your house is burned to the ground or looted and every window is broken and all your supplies are gone. Anything of value, gone. You got to start over. So, and I was kind of thinking of this more of an approach of like you and another family, you and, like not just the small. I think the small, it's kind of obvious and easy. But I think if you're trying to kind of rebuild and kind of get away, it might be you and your brother's family, your whatever, like 3 or 4 families where you have kind of a group and you're trying to figure out what to do. So, I don't know. That's where I want to go with this. What do you think?
All right. Well, I think, I like my idea of shooting your husband more, but whatever.
All right. Could go either way.
Whatever.
I didn't put strict guidelines in place, so it could go either way. I think the first thing you have to consider is really choosing a location.
Right.
Now, if it is shit hits the fan and you thought you were secure where you were and now it's not, odds are you got to get pretty far away. You probably want to go, if you're like in the cabin on the road, maybe you need to be 5 miles from the road, or somebody else is just going to find you again.
Right. Now, I always tend to think of my location where I'm at, what I would use, here in the majestic Adirondack Mountains.
Oh, majestic.
I'd look for a cave or an outcropping of rock to start to build your shelter on. It already gives you a form of protection. You got one wall already set up. But a lot of other places, like say a desert. If you're looking at the dunes and there's nothing around, you're going to look at the steep side of the dune because the wind is coming from the opposite direction. If you're say, on an island surrounded by ocean, you might want to go towards the center of the ocean, or center of the island to, afford yourself a little bit more protection. But depending on your location, you're gonna have to choose the best situation.
Now, there's some other things you want to consider, like water supply.
Right.
You're going to be close to water, or is it clean? Is it going to be shitty? Or are you going to, whatever.
And you also want to think about that water supply during a flood. You don't want to be right next to it. And if you're in a low-lying area that's generally dry, it might not be that way under a heavy rain. You might be, set up your shelter in a giant, pond that forms.
Right. And security is an issue, like we were talking distance from the road.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a big mountain overlooking it that anybody who's up there is going to look down and go, oh, there's a camp right over there?
Right.
Whatever. I don't know. I don't know what's near you. But, and, sometimes you don't have
now
a
that
choice.
guy, Eric Rudolph, he was the guy that escaped and hid out in the woods for about 10 years.
All right, what'd he do?
He built his right along the edge of a mountain towards the peak, but down a little ways, and found like a crevice in the rock, and that's where he started building his shelter.
All right, so he actually lived in the crevice?
In the crevice. That's where he had his fire.
Right in the butt crack of the mountain?
Right in the crack.
All right.
And, I'm not saying following his footsteps. I mean, he was a murderer and a bomber.
Oh, so you wouldn't go that way?
I'm just saying, if you happen to be a murderer and a bomber and you want to hide out,
technique for
look
you.
into this guy.
And maybe find another podcast.
Yeah.
Because just don't tell them you were downloading our podcast.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, don't be like, yeah, Kevin and Chuck suggested. But just be like Kevin suggested.
Kevin suggested that I bomb abortion clinics and rob banks. No.
No, you didn't?
I didn't.
Okay.
I just saved somebody's life right there.
That was
See,
nice,
I'm always killing them. I'm saving them now.
Taking it the other way, huh? All right. Also think about, one, getting materials and supplies to the location, or what resources are going to be available there to build.
Right.
Right.
You're going to have a hard time building a shelter in the desert if that's your situation. You're going to have a hard time finding a water source too.
I recommend not spending the apocalypse in the desert.
Yeah, that's probably a good move.
That's the better.
But if you go over the desert in the United States, there's trailers full of crazy people all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how they do it, but, miles and miles from anybody else. Just out there being crazy by themselves.
All right. Now, one, if this is anything you considered and you take it at all like possible in your mind, you're like, well, this could be a thing and this could happen, I would recommend maybe caching some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, maybe you scout these places out. You take the weekend trip, go out with the four-wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
You're out on the dirt bikes in the woods and you scope out some good locations.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, that might be a thing.
Right.
Now, you don't want to be like on the general trail where somebody out hunting is going to,
yeah, what's going on over there?
Because you imagine people are going to start hunting further and further out if times are hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to, plan your escape. But if you can plan out, like burying maybe a little cash, some things.
I recommend using a cooler.
No, I'm saying cache, not like cash. Like burying cash, not really going to help you in the apocalypse.
No.
But
spelt different, pronounced the same.
Well, kind of the same, right? So what I would say, pre-stage, maybe ammo, possibly extra weapons.
Mm-hmm.
In New York, you might want to stash some 30-round magazines. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
California, whatever.
Yeah.
That's something you could do out there. I would also say an axe.
Right.
I would say a bow saw.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some sharpening equipment.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of food would be nice too, but hey, I'll take what I can get.
Right.
You throw a .399 AR and 1,000 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
you maybe, you have that and an axe, some dry matches, some food, some little starter stuff. Get you a long way.
A tarp and some paracord.
Tarp. Now, there were some other good things I was thinking. I like paracord. I like a tarp.
Yeah, making a roof
cool.
out of bark is not pleasant if you can.
Well, here I'm going to one up you. If we're really staging this, and I got to tell you, I think, aside of the AR and the ammo, I think for $100, like, obviously, you guys have heard me talk about a good axe is worth its weight in gold and whatever. But if you went to Home Depot or Lowe's and bought a $15, $25 axe, or maybe you even yard saled it and found a $5 axe, something like that, right? If you put an axe, a shovel, some little bit of food and stuff out there, it'd make life a lot easier. A bow saw.
Yeah, a shovel would be a big help with a lot of
this stuff. So another thing you might want to consider, and this is what I was thinking, if you could time it, if you have like a four-wheeler or some kind of resources while things are good, a roll of tar paper costs you like $25.
Yep.
And just like Kevin said, making roofing material, your world would be so much better if you had a tar paper roof and then threw whatever the hell you want to throw on it to protect it.
Right.
You could throw sod on there, whatever.
Yeah, let me just say that tar paper does degrade pretty quickly when exposed to UV. So it's great building material, but you want to throw something over top of it.
And believe it or not, same thing really applies with tarps.
You
have a tarp roof or something, even just throwing a sheet or a blanket on top of it will protect it from the sun and really prolong the life.
Right.
But throwing sod or something like that over it's really going to be your key to, enhancing it. I'm just saying those things. We're going to, talk about some options if that doesn't work. But just the same, that's a great, starting point, having all that. And I don't think it's unreasonable. Even if, work with me, even if you stash this stuff on your own property in a back corner, I'd like you to stash it somewhere out there where, you might actually head.
Right.
Because you know what? It doesn't take anything to go out there now, even if you rented a four-wheeler if you didn't have one, or borrow one from your buddy. Right. Or I say go buy one. Realistically, if you pay attention for 6 months, 8 months, you can find one for $500.
Right.
They're not, whatever. And maybe you can do 5 hiking trips and you carry this stuff out one at a time. One item at a time.
Right.
Roll of tar paper is kind of heavy. But you really can't go 5 miles with a roll of tar paper. If you
should
can't,
be ashamed of yourself.
Shame. Shame. So these are some things you might want to think about because having this stuff staged could mean the world.
Right.
Starting over from nothing is pretty tough.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Native Americans. I'm always into their styles of building, their skills in hunting and gathering. I'm always paying attention to that sort of stuff, and they really, they really had it together.
You used to date the 3 sisters, isn't that right?
I am not going to comment on that. Beans were kind of hot, but I don't know about squash.
No. All right. Because, that was one of the big things. Those Indians, they'd plant the corn, they'd plant the beans and the squash. I guess what would happen is the beans would create nitrogen, which helps the corn, the soil. The beans grow up the stalks of the corn chaff there. Then they'd plant the squash in between, which has the big, broad leaves.
Right.
And those leaves covering the area
down,
would keep the weeds down, and they'd also keep the soil moist for longer. And it was really a big win all around. But that's not exactly what we're talking about right now. But that's, kind of a thing. So, speaking of Indians, turns out up here in the Northeast, we had the Algonquin Indians.
Right.
Now, I don't know about the younger, more modern generation, but I know when I was a kid, you always had to make some kind of stupid longhouse in school.
Jeez.
On a board. They always had it. Everybody did it. I don't know.
I was looking through like for videos of people actually building longhouses.
And they were like school projects.
No, I had to wade through so many popsicle stick longhouses to find somebody that actually built a real one. But I mean, I tell you what, you can make it out of pipe cleaners.
There are a lot of options.
A myriad of options.
All right. So what I was thinking is you're probably better off building one shelter. No, it depends on the size of your group.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're one family. Maybe it's just you and your 4 or your 5. Maybe it's because it gets easier as you're smaller. It's harder to do the work by yourself, but you only have to do so much work,
Mm-hmm.
And you're only answering to you. And it turns out when it's just you can tough it out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Suck it up.
Has been my experience. But anyway, you want to build one shelter you can all deal with. Now, that may be everybody crammed in, 2 families into a tiny cabin that you build.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's 6 families and you build some kind of longhouse like the Iroquois and like that. Now, what they did, it was kind of different than I imagined it. I always see the pictures, and it's the long building, and it's, it's got straight sides, no windows, just open on either end, and it has a rounded roof.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what was unique to all of them that I didn't really realize till I went back and kind of researched this is they would make the frame on the outside, but if you were looking from the side and looking in, there were actually 4 support beams straight up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And what it would be is you would have like a rack. Like if you think of like bunk beds on either side as you walk through the center.
Right.
So you have 4 posts that all go to the same height in the center. Think of a rectangle building, but then you're going to run the rounded roof, over the top there.
Right. And you use saplings for that.
They
tie them off on each end and bend
use,
them over.
They had a word for it that I can possibly find.
And then generally they would use long strips of bark. What they would do is during the spring, they would cut down trees, and when the sap was running,
right,
they'd cut a line straight down the log and then peel the bark around out each side, and then weight it down when the sap was running because the bark came off easier.
Right.
And then they would weight it down and let it dry so it would be flat.
Now, they called it a second growth forest.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is when you have thick old trees, it's tough to do anything. Whereas after a forest fire or, disease comes ripping through, you end up with a lot of skinny, tall, straight trees.
Right.
And they would use those small shafts to go in and do it. And again, it doesn't have to be that tall. I mean, you could be 6 foot. I think that a lot of them were in that closer to 7, 8 foot because they did like double bunks and that kind of thing. But, and they would run fires in there, whatever. But back to what you were saying, the sides were made out of bark. Mm-hmm. And they were using the bark both for... They would strip it and use it to tie it all together.
Right.
But they also, like you said, would lay it out in sheets after they peeled it back. They would wet it down. They would take it while it's still wet, let it down, and let it dry in big flat sheets. Mm-hmm. And they would put rocks on it and whatever. And then after they put it up on the sides of the building, they would then run branches along the outside to kind of clamp it in.
Right.
And so that was a neat way to do it. Now, something like that, are settled and have that one safe structure established, you could start then building smaller other buildings. The main building could then be used as like a barn. It could be used, like livestock. It could be like a trading post. It could be your meeting hall. It, kind of could be your main, group gathering area where stuff happens. And the other can be the smaller private sleeping areas. They don't need to be that big. They could do the kitchen in the longhouse. You have a lot of options to have shared space and then do smaller outside.
Yeah, and typically with the longhouses, I think the biggest surviving one was 400 feet long.
That's a long
And they would stretch it. And basically, one family would live on one side, then the fire would be in the middle, then the next family, then the fire, and the next family. And that way they could share heat, but still have their own private areas. So that center fire would be basically the communal area, where you would, have a meeting, say. So, that was a very interesting way to set it up, I thought. A separation, but also a meeting place in between.
Not bad. Now, what are some other types of shelters we do? Like, so say we get established, that's already good. How do we expand? Now, I have a bunch of different areas we want to add to this, like different things you'd want to set up if you're making like a group homestead.
Right.
But what type of individual shelters could we do?
Well, one that I thought was pretty interesting was Sweat Lodge. A few years ago, I used to do sweat lodges quite a bit, and I built one. Let's see, this is probably going back about 15 years.
All right.
Basically, what it is, it's you get 8 saplings, and you do about 10 feet apart. You would put 2 holes next to each other, about 2 feet apart, and about 8 feet across, 2 other holes. You'd set the saplings in there and bend them over. And then on the opposite sides, you'd do the same thing. So you're basically creating a dome.
Right.
With a square in the middle. And then you would just dig a hole in the center and leave that center square on the roof open. Then you could have the fire in the center and just drape blankets or whatever over top of it. It would keep the rain out, and it would stay somewhat dry because the fire would always be drying out the blankets. And tell you what, man, you get a good sweat up in there. Yeah. And doesn't matter if it's 10 degrees outside. You're steaming when you come out. And a lot of the natives would do this and go in cold rivers afterwards. And it would be basically a way to shower without having a shower. Good way to get clean. And also it's a good way to it's like a sauna almost, It's a good way to relax your muscles and recover from, strained muscles and things like that. So I always like that idea. It seems very simple, easy to make. And, it's useful if you're into that sort of thing.
Now, another thing is like log cabins.
Right.
Turns out they're not as impossible if you think small.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with doing a small room and then doing another room.
Right.
Or, and just expanding as you go.
Right. An 8x8 is easy to make.
Especially if you got a lot of people there to help you and whatever. That's why, I mentioned the axe. It's not hard. I mean, obviously a chainsaw, if you can plan before the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, in any one of these situations, a chainsaw would be a big help,
I mean, that's great. But if you don't have it, you know what? You make light work with a bow saw and an axe.
And think about this. A lot of the natives, especially with the longhouse, they were using stone tools to do this. So with a steel knife and a hatchet, you're years ahead of them.
Sharpening stone.
Yeah, and a decent tree. Right. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the log houses was building a basic A-frame.
Okay, now tell me about how would you do that?
Basically, you would either use a tripod on either end for a ridge pole, or you'd fix it between 2 branches if you're, in a rush and you just could find the right spot to do it. And you're going to lean up, maybe 10-foot poles, 45, 60 degrees apart, a 60-degree angle.
Now,
and lean it in.
The way you do that is, so you have the 2 long poles, you tie the end together with rope at the top, and then you just pull it up and then pull them out at the bottom.
Right.
And then you can just lash around the top and kind of tighten it up with another rope. It's not too hard to get that to come together pretty easy.
Right. And if you have a tarp or tar paper, you've got a house in about 45 minutes, especially if you've got somebody else competent with you. Which, I mean, it's not always the case, but hopefully, we're talking about more long-term shelters here.
These people have already made it through the first 3 weeks of the apocalypse, so you've already weeded out a lot of the chaff,
A lot of the losers. And teepees. That's another fairly simple thing, and those are good because they're pretty movable.
And if you kill buffalo, their skins.
There you go.
Perfect for that.
Mm-hmm. And basically what you would do is you'd want at least 3 long straight poles. And you tie them together at the end and then stand it up, spread out the bottom, and then just wrap the outside with your tar paper.
Typically, when you look at it from the Indian perspective, they're usually pretty big at the base.
Right.
They would usually have a fire going in the center. So up where the branches go through, the smoke's going right out there. It's kind of open. And you're like, well, what if it rains? But if you have a fire going, the moisture isn't usually coming in.
Right. And, another thing to think about when you're building these, the smaller it is, the more heat you're going to be able to keep in there. Yeah. When you get into these bigger things, you really are going to have to think about heating your log cabin or your longhouse or your teepee. But let's get into the log cabins a little bit.
All right. What are your thoughts there?
Now, really what you want to do is find trees that are about 6 to 8 inches in diameter.
Sounds right. Well, you want them movable. Now, there are a lot, if you actually do some research, there are a lot of ways to move logs that are pretty big and pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fulcrum things, rolling things, different things you can do that make it pretty easy. I've seen guys make carts where they basically have 2 wheels and an axle, and they'll drop the log on it, and then they can mysteriously drag it through the woods pretty easy.
Right.
There's a lot of different little tricks you can do. I saw a guy take 2 sticks together, 2 logs, like 4-inch diameter logs that were about 6 feet long, made like a with it, and was able to use it as like a fulcrum and pull the bigger logs.
Right.
With
and just
the leverage.
tip it over.
But, there's different options if you do your research now. Trying to be clever and come up with this shit after the fact, not so easy, but an hour or 2 on YouTube might give you some ideas, and maybe a notepad is not the end wrong, to make some notes.
Now,
of
Davy Crockett,
King of the Wild Frontier,
apparently once built a log cabin just by cutting trees down at the right angle so they all fell on the right spot, and he just was able to cut the trees down, they fell down, built the cabin.
I think you should just do it that way.
That's the easiest way. That also is probably a tall tale. Yeah? It sounds like a lot of bullshit on that one. But if you could do it that way, that's the easiest way, That
is.
But you can notch the ends when you lock them together.
Yes.
And you can notch the top and bottom of the log. A lot of people say, though, you should just notch the bottom where it lays over top. That way you're not having water pooling up in between the logs there,
Okay.
You're going to want to take all the bark off the logs before you start to use it. Bark on the logs is going to keep insects in.
Yep.
And it's going to rot a lot faster.
Slowly rot. But I got to tell you, I've seen people leave the bark and get, 25 years out of it. I'm not saying they rot right away if you don't, but it will help things if you can get that bark off. But if you can't and you're really rushed, you can maybe try and get it off later and whatever. I'm not saying it's the end of the world if you don't get the bark off. The other thing I'd recommend, again, I've seen people take pine logs and lay them right in the dirt, and they do okay. And, they last 20, 25 years before they start rotting. Whatever. If you really want it to be the long-term shelter, it'd be cool if your base 4 logs, whatever's on the foundation on the ground, if you use cedar or something that isn't going to rot, that might be a better way to go for just the base. And then, I mean, yeah, it's cool if it's all cedar, but good luck finding that many cedar trees
especially
right next
that
to
many,
each other.
Yeah, straight cedar trees. They tend to be
that's not
knotty and knobby. And obviously, when you look for the trees, you're going to want to find straight trees that are similar diameter. You know, you don't want to shrink, 6 inches over 10 feet. You know, you want something that's gonna be somewhat consistent.
Now, don't forget to dig your little root cellar in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Little cooler inside the cabin.
Now, what was the Mad Trapper's name? He built his root cellar, and that's where you hide from the dynamite.
Albert Johnson.
That's right. Go back a couple episodes if you don't remember that one.
What's cool is you pull out the stores that you have in there, you hide in the root cellar, put the stores on top, then the bad guys come in, oh, look, here's a bunch of canned food, I'll just take that. Mm-hmm. And then they leave. And then when they're walking away, you shoot them in the back.
That's right.
Secret of the pros.
Always shoot them in the back. How about just building a basic lean-to? That's another one. You want the ridge pole standing up, and you're just going, it's basically the same as an A-frame, except just one-sided. The problem with this is you basically have 3 open sides. And it's really hard to fill those in. You basically have one wall.
Right.
And anytime I've built a lean-to, it's been a nightmare trying to, build those triangle walls. It just never makes any sense.
But you gotta stack shit.
Maybe
That's basically
what
your
you're
firewood is stacked up for walls over there. Who knows?
Yep.
But yeah, no, I see what you're saying. That's it. You get protection from one direction.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if it's middle of the winter, you're making some snow walls, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I could see that as like a constant fight. Now, then there's a bunch of things. So after you get your shelters and your sleeping quarters, maybe after you get like the main living shelter, I think the next move is you got like a camp kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Water filtration and irrigation.
Mm-hmm.
You also want to set up like a latrine.
Yeah, now it's very important to not play in your own shit.
No. It turns out that's where disease spreads.
Disease, parasites, all the nastiness.
You maybe want to look at fencing in areas like gardens, maybe livestock. Now, hopefully it's cool if you had some chickens or something to bring with you, but it turns out you can catch like rabbits in the wild,
mm-hmm.
and it turns out more and more of this country, you can catch pigs in the wild.
Yeah.
And
I don't know that I'd want to try and re-domesticate a wild boar.
Hey, baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get them to breed, then, I don't know. I think you could do it.
Yeah, I know there's a phrase that says "fuck like rabbits."
They do.
I don't know that they say "fuck like pigs" though.
They don't say that?
No, I mean,
right.
Maybe I just don't know all the phrases, but it seemed like if you were saying "fuck like pigs," it wouldn't be procreation. It wouldn't mean like, my fat neighbors Bill and Pam.
Technical foul. All right, so water filtration though. I think we've gone into that on other episodes. Maybe we'll revisit it, building, a water filter. Maybe that'll be one of these short episodes we got.
Mm-hmm.
We'll kind of get into something like that.
Yeah, and I've seen quite a few interesting,
we had water
ones.
episodes and ways to do, setting up storage. But I'm kind of thinking maybe we talk about like water filtration in a totally off-grid where you have no resources aside of nature, and maybe we can find a way to do that and kind of set you up there. Also think about maybe setting up like some kind of hospital or clean operating room. Again, you work with what you got. The best thing that you can set up is better than nothing. So just something to be aware of. And same thing, maybe like a butcher shop kind of thing. So these things all kind of come in time, maybe even like a bathhouse. If somebody's creative enough and you're getting things going, setting up a way for people to bathe or shower or whatever is probably not an impossible task. Again, not your priority when you're desperate to find food and survive.
Right.
But if you have enough people and things start going, you got to kind of start rebuilding back to normal.
Right. And I a couple years ago, I got one of those solar showers. It's just basically a black bag that hangs from a tree branch.
Turns out you could work something out.
Yeah, it's a huge advantage. And then all you really need is a black bag and a hose that you can turn off and on.
And this is something, you can rig up without a black bag. You can find a way, a 5-gallon bucket, a different thing. There's ways to do it, is the bottom line. I don't know about the solar part and the warm, but you can rig up a shower. Again, not my priority in the beginning. I'm worried about shelter. I'm worried about getting food.
Staying warm.
I'm worried about security. All these things come first, but there comes a time when it's time to start thinking outside of the box. Doing the research now, that's really why we do this podcast. We want to keep you guys, thinking about the different things, the different ways. And if you're like, oh, there's a way to do that. I heard somebody did this once. Or, and, a lot of it, we kind of expect you to the ideas that you think are valuable to kind of start doing a little research on your own. Same thing, like aquaponics, things like that. Having a book around or something like that to help you move things along. If you could get a way better yield out of your food production, that'll make a huge difference, in the end of the world there.
Right.
Just saying, I guess people are always like, well, I don't think there'll be an economic collapse. I don't think there'll be an EMP. But I know my experience in the military, people in these other countries that I've been in, they didn't expect their world to turn to shit.
Right.
They didn't think that they'd be forced to, hide out in the woods for a month at a time or 6 months at a time or years at a time.
Right. This has been going on in Venezuela for years now. Their government has just basically collapsed and shooting anybody that's trying to... People are actually flooding that country with food and supplies, and they're shooting anybody that's going after them. Yeah. Any supplies that are dropped in, they're burning it. They'd rather have people starve than get help from other people.
So, and they were like the fifth, most, successful economy or something like 8 years ago.
Right.
It wasn't that long ago, and this is the kind of thing. You don't know when your world's going to turn to shit. The Jews in Germany didn't know their world was going to turn to shit.
Right. And it happened quick.
It happens very quick. And the thing is, be careful what you give up. So I just thought we'd put that out there, give you some options, get you thinking and kind of, coming up with a plan in the back of your head. Because, no, you probably won't ever need this information. But you might, and it really sucks if you didn't have it, So that's where you want to do. Now, another thing is staying sharp with your weapons.
That's right.
Getting a little tactical maybe. Told I'm not supposed to use that word, but
it sounds super corny.
It sounds super corny. And I'm a pretty corny guy. So having cool AR stuff or getting your guns ready and set up and actually going out and practicing.
Knowing how to use them. Yeah.
Knowing how to use them. Putting lead, down range. Well, there's one way that you can step up your game, and that's with Tac Pack.
That's right.
Tac Pack is going to get you the gear to get you on point and back in the range quickly with your guns cleaned, easily, have the right accessories, the right gear. Something you might be interested in. Now, for a low fee of $49.95 a month, they will send you out hundreds, sometimes, dollars worth of gear. For one $49.95 payment.
And there's always a cool knife in there. I always like to look forward to that.
Not always a cool knife. Most of the time there's a cool knife. Last time, no cool knife. But there was a nice tourniquet. If you cut yourself with that knife, you were in. So if you use the code BADASS, they're going to hook you up with a gun cleaning mat. And you're going to be all set with cool gear every month. And
that cleaning mat is actually pretty dope.
Pretty dope. I think actually one of our listeners received one for free just for being a listener to this great podcast.
Yes, that's correct.
So, and I did see some pictures of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like it made his life better. So, could change your life too. Also, just wanted to let you know, Hamish, those patches are on the way. They didn't give me any grief about the customs thing. We'll see what happens. Who knows?
All right. Let us know when you get them so that we know how long it takes, because I think we got another patch coming to another Australian.
Those freaking Aussies all want patches.
You know?
So, with that, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
The Survival and Basic Badass Podcast is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.